Okay, folks, you're all very, very welcome to this morning's Dirty Salad Club session, our very first of the new year, first of 2022. We're really excited to bring you some more great speakers, great facilitators, great topics in the year ahead. We're really, really excited this morning. We have Erin Shrimpton with us for this morning's session, who I'll introduce you to in a minute. There's a couple of new faces here this morning, I think, people we haven't seen before. You're very, very welcome. Dirty Salad Club is a forum for anybody that's involved in working with people in organizations. So whether it's HR professionals, psychologists, executive coaches, L&D professionals, talent acquisition managers, it's a space for all of us to come together as a group to learn from each other, to learn some new things, to gain some insights, to share our knowledge with each other, but also really just to be vulnerable. And so this is a really safe space. We're all here, a lot of us are all often going through similar experiences, having similar colleague experiences or client experiences. So this is really a forum for us to be really honest and open with each other. So really to help our learning in that regard, what we're experiencing personally in the workplace, what we're experiencing professionally ourselves and with our clients. So to anybody who's new here this morning, we hope you love it as much as we do. And we hope to see you here for many more sessions to come as well. So this morning we have the very, very lovely Erin Shrimpton with us, who is talking with us the super topic about finding our way through uncertainty. So needless to say, fantastic timing for this topic. Everybody, certainly I've been speaking to so far this year, has had very different and unusual and uncertain experiences of maybe the festive season just gone, and a lot of uncertainty perhaps about even the year ahead and what it's going to bring. Erin is a chartered psychologist with the Psychological Society of Ireland. She's a wealth of experience and corporate background that she brings to her work, as well as her own personal experience, which always brings a lovely touch. And I think we're really going to see lots of that with Erin this morning. So Erin, thank you so much for joining us, and we're thrilled to have you.
Tanya, thank you so much. And I am so honoured to be here as part of the Dirty Salad Club today. And thank you so much for that lovely intro. I will fly past my first intro slide. As Tanya said, I'm an organisational psychologist. I work as a coach and consultant and a LinkedIn learning instructor. And if I could summarise, I suppose, what I actually do in those roles is that I help people and organisations and teams to go through change, and I help them to change. And I think that's kind of good segue into what we are going to talk about today, as Tanya said, because I think one of the things, the unpleasant side effects that comes alongside a lot of change is uncertainty. And you know, I suppose the irony is at the moment is uncertainty has become the familiar, hasn't it? It's become the normal for us, especially in the last couple of years. So I wanted to start actually today, before I go into any content at all, and just ask you this question, because as Tanya said, you know, I think we're certainly anecdotally, the conversations I've been having with people over the last couple of weeks, it's been a challenging time. It's been a challenging couple of years, that's for sure. But I want you to think, you know, I want to ask you this question: how are you? And I don't want you to give me a very Irish response of "I'm fine." Grand. I want you to think about it. I want you to think about how are you today. So I'll just give you a couple of seconds to think that through, just to kind of tune in, work out how you are. How are you doing today? And if anybody feels comfortable to share how they're doing, feel free to chip in. I might start off in a sort of counter protocol way. You know, I usually don't answer how you are first when you ask the question, but I had a bit of a brush with Omicron myself just over the Christmas period, and I'm only back to work this week. So I was at a very low energy ebb, even right up until the beginning of this week. I'm feeling energized today, which is great. I'm so excited to be part of this session and to be here today and to be able to be here and deliver this. But I think it's an interesting kind of revelation. One of the things I was kind of a bit worried about was, you know, gosh, if I don't have the right energy to do this session, does that make me inauthentic? Or, you know, how will I do this in a way that is helpful to people? And I realized that actually, just because I'm going to talk about uncertainty, just because I do work with teams and I know a bit about the psychology of uncertainty, doesn't make me immune to the discomfort that comes alongside it. So yes, I just sort of wanted to say, you know, I think we're all coming today just feeling that pinch of uncertainty, that pinch of exhaustion after the couple of years that we've had. So if anybody did want to share how they're doing, and if you're in a great space today, in a great mood today, that's brilliant too.
There's a couple of things coming through in the chat there, Erin. Drained and uncertain.
Yeah.
2 words.
Yeah, I think, yeah, sorry, that's just going up on my screen there. I can relate very much. Yeah. It's draining, isn't it? I think that's actually a really good word. And sometimes it can feel quite hard to know how we are going to kind of fill ourselves back up to go ahead with what the rest of 22 is going to ask of us. Anything else in the chat, Tanya?
Yeah, a couple more there. People feeling positive today.
Great.
Feeling hopeful. Maeve is wondering where she should book a holiday. Lovely, Maeve. But nice to be able to have that wonder again, isn't it?
Yes. It really is. I think a bit of a blast of sunshine would really help, wouldn't it? Not that they were doing too badly now today. I do see the blue sky out there, so we're going to appreciate that. So thank you so much for sharing how you're feeling today. And, you know, as I said, just even if you did take those couple of minutes just to kind of tune into what is kind of showing up for you today, that's a helpful start to our session. You know, because between one thing or another, the level of change and ambiguity and uncertainty and adversity around right now is pretty top notch, isn't it? It's pretty high up there, and many of us are burnt out, and I don't use that word lightly. And the thing that's a bit different about the burnout that we're all feeling at the moment is that it's not just from work. You know, often when we talk about burnout in the work context. We're burnt out in kind of every dimension of our lives, you know, an emotional, social, psychological, and even physical level, you know, if any of you like me have had a bit of a brush with Omicron. But we're in this strange zone as well because, you know, as I said, the burnout is real. The end of the tether doesn't really cut it. But we're also starting to feel that little kind of inkling of optimism. I don't know if one of the things, I wonder if in years to come, I'll look back on the pandemic and think of this moment as the kind of the time that I realized it was really about to end. But I read Fergal Bowers wrote an article on the RTE website over the weekend just about, you know, the cause for optimism that we have right now. And he had all sorts of, you know, quoted all sorts of experts in the field. He had all sorts of facts to back this up. The thing that really stuck with me was when he said he has had 46 notebooks throughout the course of this pandemic so far. And he believes, you know, the notebooks that he uses, I can see a couple of people nodding, the notebooks that he uses that we'll all remember when he reads out his stats on the RTE News every night. And he believes he'll only have a few more. And there's something about that really stuck with me on a really emotional level. And I think, you know, so we can have all sorts of experts telling us why the pandemic is nearly over, but actually it was Fergal Bowers saying that really made me think, God, maybe it really is. So we are in this zone, hopefully, you know, we can keep our fingers crossed where, you know, the worst of it is hopefully behind us and that we can kind of re-emerge into the more quote unquote normal phase of life. You know, it'll never go back to how it was in 2019, but the thing that we know as well about the future is that we've learned so much over the last couple of years. And so the changes that are to come ahead of us are actually changes that we can probably get on board with, in that we've learned a lot about how better to manage our work and home lives. We now know more about what it is that we actually want and how we want to actually set our work and home lives up, so that we can We can manage our own demands and manage our own preferences even. But there's still a huge amount of uncertainty to cross before we get there. So even if it's something that we can get on board with, even if it's change that we get on board with, we still don't know how we're going to get from this point to that. And, you know, uncertainty and the feeling of the unfamiliar can be perceived by our nervous system as threat. Not by everyone, but that's generally how the psychology of it works. And it's a fear response that we get, you know, and it's not a kind of, oh Lord, the engine has fallen out of the plane and we're all going to die right now kind of fear response. It's much more low grade. You know, it's that kind of barely perceptible, kind of maybe subconscious feeling of alertness to threat. And it's exhausting, isn't it? That feeling, we've been dealing with that for pretty much constantly for almost 2 years now, and it is exhausting. Now, I'm a fan of the name it to tame it approach. In fact, it came home in my little boy's homework the other day. They're learning all about well-being. One of the points on the page was all about naming emotions and naming it to tame it, which I was very impressed with. But for this session and for the purposes of talking about uncertainty, I name what we're all experiencing right now discomfort. And it is a bit of a broad brush term. I would encourage anyone when they're, you know, tuning into how they're feeling and how they're experiencing discomfort and how they're experiencing uncertainty, I would certainly encourage you to get more granular about what that actually means for you. But just as a way of kind of a broad brush way of describing it for everyone, it's a handy way to describe it because it's universally understood, of course, but how you interpret it then is unique to you. The discomfort that comes because of uncertainty could be because of the thought patterns running through your minds, or it could be physical discomfort because of an immediate physiological response that you've had to something in the environment, something that's unfamiliar to you. Now, some theories in psychology would say that discomfort is there literally to make us act, to find a way to safety, to find a way to something more familiar. But whatever its evolutionary basis, I think that we all know that even at that barely perceptible level, it is really exhausting. So, you know, we're constantly thinking thoughts like when you think about going back in, say, into the workplace and into our offices, you're thinking things like, oh, how's this going to work? How will I manage my team? Will it be fair? Will it be safe? Will I be safe? What's my routine going to look like? And of course, our brains, as you all know, are prediction devices, constantly sizing up what's ahead so that we can resource ourselves accordingly. That's why we're such divils for making plans and building routines around us. And why when those routines and plans are pulled from under us, we find it so difficult. So if any of what I've just described there is bringing you discomfort, unfortunately, today I'm not going to be able to give you a secret immunity or a secret trick to get rid of the discomfort. The feelings and the thoughts that come with the unfamiliar are a universal part of being human, but we have to remember that that is all they are. They're just thoughts and feelings. They don't define us. They definitely don't determine our future. They will come and go. We will find a new routine, and most likely it'll be a better one. But in the meantime, what we do need and what I can share with you today are strategies to make sure that that discomfort doesn't get the better of us altogether. And so the two strategies I want to talk through today are psychological flexibility, which is all about managing the discomfort. So just managing that discomfort that arises when uncertainty is at play. And then the second one is about finding your power up. So really finding your capability, your confidence, and your motivation amidst the uncertainty. That one is all about the belief that you have in yourself. And we'll talk through that in much more detail when we get to that part. So let's start with psychological flexibility. So some of you may be familiar with the term psychological flexibility. It is a skill taught as part of, it's the third wave of cognitive behavioral therapy, otherwise known as ACT, which stands for acceptance and commitment therapy. And it's used in a clinical context to very successfully treat depression and anxiety. But it's now being used much more in a corporate context as well to help people and teams manage ambiguity, manage change, manage stress, manage burnout at work. So it is a really big skill. We could talk for the whole day about psychological flexibility. And I will be totally honest with you, I'm still a student of psychological flexibility. I'm not going to pretend I'm an expert at it. I'm still very much learning it and learning how to apply it. Of course, the last 2 years has given me ample opportunities to use it in the real context. But I feel like even the knowledge of what psychological flexibility is has helped me. So that's why I think it's really useful to even just become aware of it so that you can tune into the learnings from it. Here is Stephen Hayes' definition. Stephen Hayes is the sort of founding father of acceptance and commitment therapy. The open acceptance of unpleasant sensations, thoughts, and feelings while focusing on the present moment, which allows an individual to act accordingly to the context required in the pursuit of one's goals and values. Now, without any disrespect to that definition, I sometimes quite like to translate academic definitions into something that I feel I can kind of use in a more practical sense. So here's my definition of psychological flexibility, and we'll use this as a way to kind of talk through how you can apply it. The way I see it is that psychological flexibility is all about accepting the present moment, even when the going gets tough. So we all know what that feels like, doesn't it? You know, going's gotten tough. I'm going to try and accept this moment. And then staying focused on what's important to you, even if that means recalculating your route. God, your sat nav, constantly recalculating. And I know that, again, that's been something we've all gotten pretty good at in the last couple of years. So if I break it down into those two parts, I'll start with this first one, accepting the present moment, even when the going gets tough. And at a really, really basic level, this just means a mindful check-in, however and whenever you can, and especially when you're feeling that discomfort. So noticing what's going on for you and accepting those circumstances for what they are. To be really clear, this is not saying that if you're in huge discomfort that you should just live with it. But if you can learn to just accept it in that very moment, and here's an important one that I'm still learning, choose not to use avoidance tactics every time. Now, we do all need a good doom scroll. I'm the first to admit that does happen, or a glass of wine at the end of a day, at the end of a hard day. This is not saying that, you know, you need to banish those things from your life entirely. But it is just saying to be aware of the fact that, you know, often what our minds tend to do is try to quickly go to whatever avoidance tactic you like to use before tuning into whatever discomfort is there for you. Because the reality is that discomfort's there to tell you something. So if you're able to find ways to check in with yourself and work out, what's it telling me? What's this, you know, it's still here. What is it telling me? You'll actually be better able to learn from it and then do something about it. And most importantly, find a way to move forward that's actually helpful to you in the long run. So as you've probably guessed, psychological flexibility, in this particular part of psychological flexibility, is grounded in mindfulness. And sort of almost deliberately didn't call it mindfulness up front because it's such a huge area. And I'm conscious that mindfulness is so, it's really personal and unique to each individual, your own interpretation of what mindfulness means to you. But this part of it, that ability to tune in to what is going on for you, it was better known back in the good old days of the 1960s as just be here now. So that's what I often say to people when they try and work out how to make this work for them. What is it that helps you to be here now? I find that for some reason, I find that a more helpful way of thinking of it than what is it that helps you to be mindful. I prefer to say what helps you to be here now. So that's that first part of psychological flexibility. It's all about tuning in and to be here now and accepting the present moment. And then this is where it gets a little bit more active and a little bit more focused. The second part of it is to stay focused on what's important to you, even if that means recalculating your route. And what I'm really talking about here is knowing what you value and what you're striving for. So otherwise known as your values and your goals. Now, neither of these two ideas are new concepts, I'm sure, to anybody here. But I've actually found myself talking about values and goals quite a lot recently, even with people who tend to be very aware of what they are for them, because actually, if you think about how much we've all evolved over the last couple of years, I think even our value systems have changed a little bit. It's not to say that our values have changed, but maybe the prioritization of our values has changed, with our goals as well, or with what success looks like to us. I think, I cast my mind back to 2 years ago. I would 100% say that my measure of success for 2022 is very different to what I would have set out for in 2020. So our goals and our aspirations and what we're striving for has changed a bit. So it's always important to check back in with what these things are. So I thought what I would actually do is run through a quick values reflection exercise. Very conscious, and I'd say, because I know the background of the people in this group, many of you will have already done this and have articulated your values and have them front of mind. So we won't go into a bit, and if we were going to do this properly, we'd spend a lot of time on it. But I thought actually, even just to give a quick kind of run through some questions around your values, sometimes that just sets off a kind of a seed of thinking that you might then reflect on later today or next week or whatever it may be. I also actually wrote a newsletter a few weeks ago on this very topic, and these reflections are in the newsletter, and a bit of a cheat sheet as well around different words that you could pick out. So I was saying to Tanya beforehand, more than happy to send that round the Dirty Salad Club LinkedIn group afterwards, if it's at all of help. The first kind of reframe, I suppose, about thinking about your values is rather than asking yourself, what are my values? So if somebody comes up to you and say, what are your values? Sort of a hard one to answer. I ask instead, what do you value? So if you think about that as a sort of a headline here, then think about times when you were proud of how you handled a situation. Times in work, like meetings, workshops, and presentations, when you observed others getting things done successfully and in a way that you would aspire to. And then think about times when you were at your best. And again, I'm conscious I'm running through this quickly, but I will, as I said, send these reflections to you afterwards. For each of these situations, pick out a word that describes what you valued and how things played out. And then I think that sometimes recognizing the things that we don't value can help us clarify what we do. I think we've maybe all been in a situation where we've worked somewhere that is misaligned with our values. And I actually think that sometimes helps us be much more clear about what it is that we do value. So think about a situation where something just didn't feel right to you. And was there something you felt you had to compromise on? And what was it? So, those are just reflections. And as I said, hopefully that's just kind of going to plant a bit of a seed for you to think through what your values are. I use this exercise. I actually go through it. I try to go through it every few months myself. And I have my values in front of me here on the wall and just up on Post-it notes there. Nothing fancy. But I do try and remind myself to kind of reorder and reprioritize my values, just depending on the context of what's going on for me. So use these reflections to see if you can find a list of between about 5 and 10 values. And looking through the list, as I said, I can send you that list. It does kind of help you sometimes to come up with the words that resonate most for you. And then the thing that really helps when you do have them front of mind, the thing that I find particularly helpful, because I'm an awful decision maker during uncertainty, is when everything else seems so chaotic and ambiguous, having your values front of mind actually guides you to make decisions. And it guides you in a way that kind of helps you to feel a bit more confident that you're going to make the right decision. Because the reality is often during uncertainty, there's just too many unknowns to make a good decision, aren't there? That's one of the big problems with uncertainty. But knowing your values helps you with a bit of guidance. And it does help you just go, you know what, yes, I can be confident to think that this is the right decision for me because it is aligned with my values. So moving on to what you're striving for then and your goals. Many of us maybe have set a few goals at the beginning of 2022. I have to say, because of everything I had going on, I pushed forward. I didn't do any goal setting. I just sort of said, I'll be happy if I get into the beginning of 2022 now and I'm, you know, actually up and at 'em and ready to work and get going. But one of the things I do like to do at the beginning of the year is to set my intentions for the year. And a brilliant thing to know about the brain is that the prefrontal cortex, which is the just at the front of our brain here, it's in charge of decision making, self-control, regulation of behavior. It can actually keep those goals and intentions front of mind when we're trying to make those decisions. So again, back to that decision making during uncertainty. So if you place a conscious focus on a goal or an intention, your brain will actually work away in the background, deselecting anything that doesn't fit on your path and actually prioritizing what will. So it means that by being goal and outcome focused, you can actually equip yourself to be more successful or to kind of move forward with what you really need and what you want, even in times of uncertainty and ambiguity. And this is a really important one actually for teams as well, because we all know what it's like to work in an organization where there's huge uncertainty around us. And it can be one of the most helpful things I've found for teams is to actually just set a goal that's really achievable in the near future. Now I'm not going to go into how to successfully set goals today either, because that's another big thing, and it would be another big session. But I'd say most of us here probably know a thing or two about that. But if you know, giving people, whether it's either an individual and, you know, working on yourself or as part of a team, having those really achievable goals is such an important way of managing uncertainty, because it just gives you that focus. It gives you that self-generated confidence and kind of almost like a boost to move forward. And this is one of the things that I really wanted to hone in on actually as a takeaway about psychological flexibility. Because it's something that I noticed from observing and working with entrepreneurs over the years. And I noticed because obviously entrepreneurs by the very definition often are operating in highly uncertain circumstances, but yet the successful ones, obviously, and particularly the ones that we see succeeding, seem to be able to manage that and seem to be able to still get to their goal, seem to be able to still, you know, not be too bothered by that uncertainty, or at least they don't seem that they're as bothered by it. The reality is that, of course, they are. Like the rest of us, we're all feeling, everybody feels the discomfort that comes with uncertainty. But the reasons they're able to flex their routes, the reason they're able to try all the different alternative paths is because they have that crystal clarity on their values and what they're striving for. So it's just a learning, I think, that I've kind of taken from working with entrepreneurs over the years is always make sure, even if everything seems chaotic, even if everything seems really ambiguous, even everything is very uncertain, get clarity on your values, tune into them in whatever way you can, and set yourself some goals. And even again, you know, really conscious of where we're at today, because some of us might not feel like setting those big hairy goals for 2022. And I have to tell you, that is absolutely fine if you're not. But just even setting little achievable ones, it really helps you to just zone in and almost create a little tunnel around yourself that you can focus in on what's important to you and helps you just to move forward in spite of the uncertainty. So we're going to do a little breakout. Thank you, Tanya. I know you're going to help me to put everybody into rooms. What I would like you to talk through in the breakout is what's important to you in 2022. So you can talk about values, you can talk about goals, or you can talk about the fact that you don't want to set any goals. You can talk about, you know, how things have changed for you. This is really just, to be honest, it's without any kind of objective. I'm not going to even ask you to play back to me at the end. It's just something that I've personally found really helpful in talking to people over the last few weeks about, you know, tuning in, because I think really people are having that moment at the moment of really kind of reevaluating what is important right now. I suppose it's just after the last couple of years and the uncertainty that we're feeling. So I'd like to just give you the opportunity to do that for a few minutes in a breakout group.
I'll open those rooms for you now, Erin, as well. Something's coming to my mind as I hear you talking there. I saw a lovely post on LinkedIn recently from a Canadian psychologist who, rather than creating resolutions, setting goals, what she did was she made a list for herself of things she never regrets. And that was her focus, if you like, for the year ahead. I thought that was a lovely way to look at it as well.
Yeah, really nice. Yeah, that's a really, really nice way of looking at it.
Okay, folks, you should see an invite to join the breakout rooms now coming onto your screen.
You out, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think we're all back now.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. I think everyone has stayed in the rooms for as long as they could, so I'm sure that was a good sign, and I hope that was a helpful conversation. So I want to move on to the next part. As I said earlier, this is all about challenging the beliefs that we have when it comes to dealing with uncertainty, and when it comes to being faced with a chaotic or ambiguous situation. One of the most important buffers is that belief that we can get through whatever lies ahead, and to find that belief, though, you have to be proactive. Look for ways to equip yourself. But unfortunately, this is actually the exact opposite of what human nature has us do when we come into unfamiliar territory. So many people, I've talked to people going through change. So many times I've talked to people in teams going through change. And when I get to the nub of what's going on, I realize that actually, instead of doing that, instead of equipping themselves with whatever they need to show up in the transformed world, they're in that freeze response mode, that kind of protecting my patch. This is what I know. And it's no judgment, because it's totally normal, totally natural response to an unfamiliar situation. What I try to do with teams going through those kinds of experiences is to work with them on a construct called self-efficacy. So most of you may well know exactly what self-efficacy is, but just in case you don't, it's a term coined by the very prolific psychologist Albert Bandura. And it's all about having that belief in your own capability to get through whatever challenge lies ahead. And I think it's absolutely integral to coping with change. Because what happens when change and unfamiliar circumstances come at us is that our negativity bias starts to creep in, and we start to have these beliefs like, oh, not sure I'm going to be able for that, or don't know, do I have the skills to be able to manage that, or do I, is that kind of world in the future going to be right for me? And I've successfully done that with people in teams going through change in the past and right up to the pandemic. But it was actually in March of 2020 when I had a little add-on to my work that I used and Albert Bandura's work around. And it was from another very famous and prolific psychologist, Super Mario. And I'll tell you what happened. So I was working, or sorry, I was not working actually at all at the time, because everything went completely haywire. I was trying to manage a small child in the depths of March 2020, and trying to work out what we're going to do with them. And my husband decided he was going to take down an old Nintendo Wii from our attic, and I kind of protested for about 5 seconds, and then went, right, come on, show me the controllers. And I was trying to teach him how to play, because I'm not going to lie, I was pretty good when I was about 11. But I noticed that there was a bit of a strange kind of familiarity as I was going through the different levels. And, there's a lot of adversity that Mario faces, chaos. You don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to creep up on you next. And it sort of felt a bit reminiscent of what was going on at the time in the real world. And but one of the things that the very kind people in Nintendo do when Mario goes through these levels is they give him a power up. And it could be, if you're not familiar with the game, it could be he gets a cape so that he can fly over a deadly pit of lava and complete the level. Or it could be he gets himself a penguin suit so that he can swim past a deadly squid and get past. And I actually noticed when I was playing that as soon as I got that power up, I felt more capable in the face of whatever was ahead, and I felt more confident to tackle it. And I even felt more motivated to keep playing. So you can see what the kind people at Nintendo were actually up to there. Now, for most of us, thankfully, there's not so much kind of boiling lava or killer squids to contend with, but we do need metaphorical power-ups, boosts to our capability, to our confidence, and to our motivation, so that we can keep going and, give ourselves that boost to get through, and the belief in ourselves that we can get through whatever is ahead. So this is my definition of a power up. It's a boost that we can give ourselves mostly, but we can find it elsewhere, to our capability, our confidence, and to our motivation. Going back to self-efficacy theory, one of the best ways to do that is actually to experience success. And I mean, again, during the pandemic, I set the bar pretty low for myself. But just even on a day-to-day basis, to do something that reminds you that you're capable of doing whatever it is. So, sometimes I might just reorganize a cupboard and then go and open it and admire it, just to remind myself, look, I can do that. So it's okay. It's all going to be fine, But I use the idea of a power up in a kind of a day-to-day sense like that. So on a day, and again, this is where the kind of alignment from psychological flexibility comes in as well. On a day where you can feel that discomfort and you go, okay, what is it that I need right now? What power up can I give myself that's going to give me the belief in myself that I can get through the next minute, the next hour, the next few hours, the next day, the next week, the next month, right? And that's very personal. That can be, and I've run this exercise now with quite a few different teams, and I've heard lots of really brilliant examples, but it's unique to everybody. It's unique to you. But I also use the power up in a more strategic sense as well. So when you can foresee change ahead, which, let's face it, we all can now. And as I said earlier, the changes ahead of us are things that we possibly can get on board with, but nonetheless, it's probably making us feel a bit discombobulated. When I've worked with teams going through change over the years, there are sort of 5 themes that I have noticed that people use to power themselves up and to build their self-efficacy around. And those are, as you can see on the screen here, so well-being. And again, with the well-being point, it's actually very much around tuning into what well-being is for you and what energy you need to be able to show up. Your skills and capabilities, and I always encourage people, particularly where change in an organization is at foot, I always encourage people to work on their bedrock, what I call bedrock skills. So that's just, I don't like the term soft skills, so I call them the bedrock skills. Because if you think about it, they're the skills that underpin everything that we do. They really form that, that hard basis of everything we do. So I'm talking about things like emotional intelligence, communication, critical thinking. So I always encourage people to think, you might not know what the technical skills are going to be needed for the future of work, but all of the bedrock skills are always going to be relevant. So even if you can find 5 minutes every day to just work on one of those skills, you'll be giving yourself a power up. You'll be giving yourself that more strategic sense of capability in the future. Your career, there's an awful lot of conversation at the moment, isn't there, about the Great Resignation, but most people aren't leaving their jobs because there's a lot of risk attached to that. But that doesn't mean that we can't spend time thinking about what boosts we can give to our career. Whether it's, a move across an organization, like a lateral move or a secondment somewhere, or doing something that will improve your network. Again, something that just really gives, and again, it doesn't have to be a really big all singing, all dancing move. It can be something small that you work on every day. And again, that gives you that experience of success, that gives you that experience of capability. Your routine, and this is a really important one for now, working out what it is, what routine works for you, what boundaries you want to set between your work and your home life. and, you know, and really finding a way to put that in place. That's going to be a big power up for people. And if I had to choose a favorite child when it came to my power up themes, it would have to be the connection and community, because, you know, we know the last 2 years, we know what it's done to us in terms of being disconnected from people. And we've all done our best to stay connected, of course. And I think we've done a pretty good job of it. But I think we really know the power of being connected with people, the power of, whether that's in the work context or in our personal lives. And we know how detrimental it can be to our health and well-being, to our performance. It's actually the one area, I always marvel at this, it's the one area of psychology, across psychology, neuroscience, sociology, that all of the experts agree on. They actually agree on this, that human connection is completely integral to our well-being, and to our sense of being able to perform, and to the belief in ourselves that we are going to be able to get through whatever lies ahead. So those are the kind of the main themes. But again, you might have your own way of powering yourself up. I wanted to do a quick breakout session, but I am conscious of time. So I wonder whether this might be one actually for, and I have it as a reflection piece as well. I wonder whether this might be better anyway as a reflection, as a takeaway from today's session. So what power up do you need right now? If we tune into what we said at the very beginning of the session, you know, how are you? So a lot of people were saying things like drained. So what power up do you need today? What power up do you need right now? When you close off this session, what can you do for yourself that's going to give you the belief in your capability and your confidence and your motivation to keep going? And then what power up could you work on in the longer term, so that you can actually focus on what's important to you in 2022? So tune back into the conversations that you had in your breakout groups. What can you do to focus on that? And what can you give yourself? So that's it from me today. I just want to say a big thank you. As I said, I will forward that values exercise, just if anybody did want to do a bit more reflection on that. And I have a LinkedIn Learning course that covers some of the topics that we talked about today in probably a little bit more detail. So if anybody did want, I know not everybody has access to LinkedIn Learning, but there's a trick and there's a way that I can make it free to access by sending you a link. So if anybody wanted to contact me afterwards, I'm more than happy to send you a link to that course, just if it's at all helpful, if you wanted to hear a little bit more on the power up idea. So I'll hand back over to Tanya. If anybody has any questions or reflections, you're more than welcome to share them, but I'll hand back over to Tanya for now.
Erin, can I just ask you, that was great. Quickly, what's a doom scroll?
You're showing your age, Alan.
What?
Is that Alan? Sorry, I can't see who's talking.
Sorry, is it a doom? What is it? It's that obvious?
No, and I'm very glad you asked, because I assumed everybody knew what that meant. But I'm glad that is your takeaway from the session, Alan. The doom scroll is when you're sitting looking at your Instagram or your Twitter and you're just scrolling and scrolling and scrolling.
Okay,
and not actually even paying attention to what you're doing. Okay,
because I used Inspector Columbo as an example in a class the other day, and I had to explain who he was.
Oh,
so
yeah.
I think I'm just in trouble. But I really enjoyed it. And you know what's interesting, Erin, when you mentioned the Mario there, the British Psychological Society just came out with some research, because you know the way we all want to keep our kids off the devices.
Yeah.
We're nearly saying to them, get off the device, watch some telly, will you, for God's sake. But a big research came out, and actually it has found no negative impact on a child's well-being from gaming, even though we all perceive it does have. That's interesting.
That's very interesting, because as you may have picked up, I did have a nervousness about it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah.
But I mean, we could get into a big discussion about it, but I overall have found that has been actually, as long as it's within limits, it's been helpful.
Well, during the COVID, because we banned it from our house as well, but we got it during COVID, and it was actually a way, because my boy's 10, and they used the gaming, but they talked to each other while they game. So it's actually a godsend.
To connect, that's right.
Yeah. So that community bit.
Definitely. Yeah. And actually, funny, I did see, sorry, just one more comment on it. I did see Adam Grant's most recent TED talk he talks about the fact that during the pandemic he played Super Mario and Mario Kart, and what he found with it is that point about connection, but also that it's actually helps to experience that success, so the constant feeling of mastery as well with it. I think that's definitely something I noticed with my little fella. You know, it's the constant, I got to that next level, or I got to, you know.
I can imagine Adam Grant being like one of the Mario Karts in it himself. But, and you know, the free games as well, they make them, this was a guy with technology was telling me, they make them really easy, so the kids keep coming back for them. So they said, don't let them do the free ones, because the Mario Karts, whatever, are a bit trickier. So there is a bit of mastery in them. There is no mastery in the free ones. And I love when you said that our brains are prediction devices.
Yes.
That's a great one. Love it.
Very much so. I'm a terrible one for bad predictions.
And then I know you mentioned mindfulness in there. What meditation would you do or recommend yourself?
So I am a bit of a devil when it comes to meditation, because I have to admit, I'm really not a good meditator. But that's why I like to interpret mindfulness in different ways. And what I do personally is I get out for a walk in nature. And I find that I find stillness in doing that. Whereas I know other people might be much better able to kind of sit and meditate in the more traditional sense. I've never been able to, and I just let myself off the hook with it. Eventually, I just thought to myself, you know what? If I'm not finding peace through this way, or if I'm not finding mindfulness through this way, that's okay. And I think that's part of the kind of the self-compassion element of it.
Yeah. No point beating yourself up about it. Well, look, I'm off to doing some doom scrolling now. So thanks very much for that. Thanks, Erin.
Yeah, Erin, that was great. Really, really great. Thanks so much. I really liked the way you did the values piece as a short little piece there. I mean, a lot of us will have done values exploration with our clients, but that could be a lovely way to revisit it, you know, in terms of times of transition or when they might be changing. And I think the themes, your 5 themes of the power up as well, could be a really great basis for a coaching exploration with clients as well.
Yeah, I hope so. And I'm conscious I did a bit of a whistle-stop tour of a few ideas there, but I often find that even if you just have the ideas kind of pop into your mind, and then it might plant a seed there for later reflection. Yeah, absolutely. It was super. I'm conscious we need to let everybody go shortly. You'll have other places to be, but just to mention, next month on the 16th of February, we have the lovely Farzana Morderbakis with us. Farzana is here this morning, and she's going to be talking to us about resilience in our current reality. And we asked you at the end of 2021 what people would like more of in 2022. And we just got a load of resilience. People can't get enough of it. So we're going to revisit it next month with Farzana. So I'll be sharing a link to book into that session, and it'll be up on Eventbrite and on the LinkedIn group shortly as well. So Erin, thanks so much again for your time and your wisdom and sharing your professional knowledge and your personal experience with us today. It's been really, really lovely. And thanks to everybody for joining in. And we will see you again next month. Thanks, Tanya. Thanks for inviting me. Thanks, everybody. Keep well, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tanya.
Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.